Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm Jeff Howe, joined by CJ Vogel. The Texas-Ohio State season opener has a quarterback matchup. It's Arch Manning versus Julian Sayin, and we'll get into it on this edition of On Texas Football, which is brought to you by our friends at Hargrove Roofing. We'll tell you more about Hargrove later in the show, but CJ, we were actually on a live stream after Sark's Monday press conference talking about a number of things when it popped that Julian Sayin was going to start at quarterback. Sark actually addressed it during the press conference. So let's go ahead and set up everything by hearing from Sark right now. We had just found out that Julian Sayin was named the starter for Ohio State. Here's Sark's thoughts on the Buckeye starting quarterback.
Yeah, ton of respect for Julian. We recruited him hard here. He was a very gifted passer, really good player. Came to camp with us, I want to say 2 years in a row. And so we've got a lot of familiarity with him. He's obviously a California kid, his high school coach and whatnot. So very good player, elite passer, very good arm talent, very quick release, really accurate guy. Obviously, he's got great weapons around him. And so, he's the type of guy that can utilize those weapons in a good system. So it poses a heck of a challenge.
CJ, one thing I can say is that Sark isn't lying when he talks about them bringing in Sayin, them liking him a lot. And I mentioned this on the live stream, and I'll say it again. If Arch Manning never committed to Texas, there's a decent chance Julian Sayin starting this game for the Longhorns.
Yeah, I'd say there's a very good chance Julian Sayin is starting this game for the Longhorns. It's funny how things ultimately end up. Texas ends up with Arch Manning. Sayin signs with Alabama. Nick Saban retires, and now he's an Ohio State Buckeye. And this is now how we're talking about the quarterback matchup for this game, Jeff. But yes, very talented quarterback Arch Manning versus very talented quarterback Julian Sayin, both of which were the number one quarterbacks in their class. Julian, the class of 2024, Manning, the class of 2023. It's set. It's exciting. It's a heavyweight matchup between the quarterback spots.
CJ, let's look at Julian Sayin. As you said, one of the top, if not the top quarterback prospects in the country in the class of 2024. Initially signed with Alabama. Nick Saban retires. He ends up transferring to Ohio State. And last year for the Buckeyes, CJ, he sees action in terms of pass attempts in 4 games, including one pass attempt in their college football playoff first-round win over Tennessee. Didn't play in the Rose Bowl against Oregon, the Cotton Bowl against Texas, or the national championship against Notre Dame. But 14 dropbacks, CJ, in those 4 games. He was 5 for 12 for 84 yards and a touchdown. This isn't a matter of talent level between the two quarterbacks because I think, and again, we heard Sark talk about it, Julian Sayin is a really talented quarterback. It's just a matter of when you start looking at the matchup head-to-head, you look at a guy in Arch Manning, like, yes, Arch has started a couple of games and really put an asterisk next to the UTSA game because he played pretty much the entire game once Quinn Ewers got hurt. Arch has been in the college program for this is his 3rd year now. He backed up Quinn Ewers for 2 years. Now it's his team. You got Julian Sayin as a true sophomore. CJ, it's just a matter of one has a lot more experience, even though on paper, in terms of starts, it might not look like it. But Arch Manning has a lot more college experience than Julian Sayin does right now.
Yeah, comparatively speaking, yes, that's the big point here. Again, 5 of 12 passing a year ago, 1 touchdown. That came on a 55-yard completion to Bennett Christian on 4th and 1 against Western Michigan, I believe. So in theory, that's a bit of a busted coverage, perhaps. You haven't had a completion longer than 12 yards otherwise. Now there's only, really about 4 that you can base that off of. But when you're facing a Texas front 7, like what we expect Texas to travel with to Columbus, those windows are going to be very tight, and that margin for error is going to continually diminish as the game wears on. The big thing for me, and look, we've talked about experience. It's so important at the quarterback position. Arch, compared to Sayin, has more. Now, it's still not a lot, and I think Ryan Day had that same kind of mindset that Sark did later in the season. They're looking forward to the future, and right now, any experience that Sayin has or had in 2024 is going to build up for this moment, August 30th.
CJ, let's start looking at what's around Julian Sayin because we know what's around Arch Manning, and we can talk about the offensive line here in a minute. Talk about, the running back room at Texas. Probably, I would say CJ Baxter is probably the MVP of camp. Maybe that whole running back room period shares the camp MVP just based on what Trey Wisner continues to do, and then Christian Clark coming off the Achilles. But let's look at what's around Julian Sayin. You look at that Ohio State offensive line, CJ. they've got some experience. It's just last year with injuries, they had to move guys around and kind of piece it together on the fly, which actually, if you look at their national championship run, as good as Jeremiah Smith was, and you can look at other aspects of their team, what they did on the offensive line to get through that with some pretty serious injuries, yes. I think that speaks volumes for what they've got going on in Columbus right now. And yes, they lost that really talented backfield with Trevion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins now off to the NFL. James Peoples, who folks in the Austin area might remember a little bit in high school. He's a San Antonio product out of Wagner High School. And CJ Donaldson, who, again, it was a few years ago, but he was at West Virginia, actually suffered a neck injury in their game at Texas during that 2023 season, was a really talented kid from Neil Brown and Chad Scott at West Virginia. So they're familiar with him in his transfer to Ohio State. CJ, what are your thoughts on just what's around Julian Sayin? We know about the receivers, but the guts of that offense, some familiar faces on the offensive line, but a lot of new stuff for the Buckeyes this year.
Yeah, I think if you're a quarterback in the country trying to win a job, there's probably not a more friendly job to win than the Ohio State Buckeyes quarterback position. Get to throw to the best football player in all of the country, Jeremiah Smith, and about 4 other 5-star wide receivers, right? Life should be pretty good if you're the starting quarterback at Ohio State. And they've certainly had a very strong run of quarterbacks. They turned Will Howard into a national champion, Jeff. So that job, it's a very friendly position for quarterbacks. Now, how can Julian Sayin elevate that position? Of course, his arm is going to be basically the biggest part of his game, of course. But it's his legs that I think is really going to pose a challenge for this Texas defense, and specifically his ability to escape and still throw the ball down the field, not necessarily beat you with his legs like a Sam Levitt did, like a Cade Klubnik did at times, but the escapability behind the pocket, behind the line of scrimmage, and just making defenders miss while looking eyes downfield, much as we've talked about with Arch Manning at times. So when you look at this wide receiving core, whether it be a Brandon Ennis, a Carnell Tate, a Jeremiah Smith, you're going to have to perhaps stay onto them for 2 or 3 extended seconds, and that's not an easy thing to do. Now, Texas has been good at facing dual threat mobile quarterbacks. Will they be able to do this again against a rebuilt offensive line for Ohio State and a quarterback who out of the gate, I think is going to surprise some folks with his mobility, which we haven't necessarily seen on tape in his limited experience.
Yeah, we'll get to more of that here in just a second. But right now, I want to say thank you very much to our friends over at Hargrove Roofing, with offices across Texas, including Austin, as well as Arkansas and Louisiana. Hargrove Roofing will take care of all of your roofing needs. Plus, they're Longhorn friendly with partners like former defensive tackle Stevie Lee. They are the most pro burnt orange roofing company out there. No one wants to turn over their home to a company they can't trust. So call Hargrove today for a free, no strings attached roof inspection. Just call 512-645-3202. Again, that's 512-645-3202. Hargrove Roofing, know who's on your roof. CJ, I wrote over at ontexasfootball.com on Monday afternoon about how Texas plans on handling Jeremiah Smith. And look, you just want to limit the opportunity he's gotten man coverage, those chances, because he ate man coverage alive last season as a true freshman, which I don't think that should surprise anybody, because you're talking about probably maybe the most talented player in the country, period. But when you talk about Julian Sayin, you're looking at a guy 6'1", about 205, 210 pounds. We haven't really seen him have to show the escapability, the athleticism. My question is this, CJ. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Pete Kwiatkowski's never been a big blitz guy. Does he bring extra pressure at Julian Sayin? Does he let it try to develop organically? And I think the real chess match is, what do Pete Kwiatkowski and Dwayne Akina as the defensive pass game coordinator, what do they show in terms of their coverage looks? Show Ryan Day and Brian Hartline, who's the offensive coordinator now, even though I think that'll be a collaborative deal. We'll see how that ends up working out. But
right,
CJ, it's to me, it's twofold. What kind of pressure can Texas get up front? And we've talked all offseason about the communication concerns of losing Jahdae Barron and Andrew Makuba. Michael Taft's obviously going to be the communication center, but how much do PK and Dwayne Akina really trust this secondary to run split coverages, mix it up, have tags, call things on the fly? I just don't know where that's going to be in the open.
Yeah, I've got a couple thoughts here. The first, I wanted to go back to Julian Sayin's frame. 6'1", he's listed at about 207, 208 pounds. Physically, he looks very similar to Quinn Ewers. And I know that adding to his frame is going to continue to be a big part of his development as a quarterback. Mobile, or I guess his nimbleness as a quarterback, does not mirror that of Quinn Ewers. So throw that completely out the window. Julian Sayin can move a little bit. And obviously, we've talked about maybe how limited Quinn was, especially after the injury in 24. But all in all, how much do you really want to open him up to being hit, especially early in the season? My best guess is probably not very often. If you're Ohio State, you have the same aspirations of going back-to-back and winning another national championship. If that's the case, you don't want your quarterback getting hit, especially at 207, 208 pounds, Jeff, immediately in the season. So do they want to scamper him around as often? Probably not. But ultimately, when it comes to this Texas defense, I have the idea that you just bring the house. You unload everything early on. We talked about it on the winning drive Monday afternoon. That clip of Sam Darnold saying on the sideline on a Monday night game, "I'm seeing ghosts. I don't know what I'm looking at." That's how you rattle a young quarterback facing the number one team in the country with perhaps the best defense in the country. Is you show him exotic blitzes, you mix and match coverages. And at the end of the day, yes, Ohio State has some of the best wide receivers you will face in all of college football in 2025, perhaps the best position room of any position room in all the country. But you're to the point now, if you're Texas, that if you can't stick on these guys for 2 or 3 seconds, then you're probably not cut out to win a national championship either. So I think you bring the house early. I think you get after Saying, you make life very difficult for him to diagnose what's down the field, and you rely on that athleticism and experience in your own back end to make sure that there's not wide open Buckeyes running scot-free down the field.
I mean, CJ, as of today, we're 11 days away from kickoff, and you think about all the moves Texas made defensively in the offseason, whether it was moving Trey Moore to off-ball linebacker, bringing in Brad Spence, all the guys they worked out at the nickel position, getting Derek Williams back and healthy, the competition at that corner opposite Malik Muhammad. This is why you did all that stuff. This is why you wanted diversity and multiplicity and unpredictability. It's for a game like this, so I can't wait to see what PK unleashes. CJ, thank you for the knowledge and expertise as always. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes for producing it. Thank you to the entire On Texas Football staff. If you're not a member over at ontexasfootball.com, get over there right now. Sign up using the promo code OTFOG. That's OTFOG. That'll get you 1 year of access at ontexasfootball.com for $39.95. You don't want to miss a minute of what we got going on over there. Make sure you like this video and you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel. That way, whether it's here on the channel or on the site, with 11 days to go until kickoff, you're getting all the news, notes, and nuggets you could possibly stomach leading up to kickoff between number 1 Texas and number 3 Ohio State. For CJ, for Matthew, for the On Texas Football staff, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And until next time, welcome.